Welcome to This Explainer. Today, I'm going to be stepping into the shoes of both your expert mentor and your RICS assessor. You can absolutely consider this your ultimate masterclass for the APC Ethics hot seat. We're going to conduct a really comprehensive review covering everything you actually need to nail the ethics, rules of conduct, and professionalism competency. My goal here is to guide you through exactly how to structure your reasoning when the pressure is really on. So here's how we're going to break this down today. First up, we'll tackle the core knowledge for levels 1 and 2. Second, we'll dive into my own experience where we translate that textbook knowledge into realistic level 1, 2, and 3 interview questions. And finally, we'll hit scenario-based application, grouping some of those really tricky level 3 dilemmas by specific themes.
All right, let's jump straight into part 1. Core knowledge. We need to lay a really solid groundwork here with the RICS structure and, of course, the fundamental rules you absolutely have to have memorized.
So let's start at the very beginning. An assessor might ask you, what exactly gives RICS its authority? Well, it operates under a royal charter, which was granted way back in 1881 by Queen Victoria. But this isn't just some fun historical trivia. It is a strict mandate requiring RICS to maintain and promote the usefulness of the profession for the public advantage. Basically, it means RICS is self-regulating, sure, but external accountability always applies because fundamentally, you are there to serve the public interest.
Now let's talk about the 5 current rules. These literally form the backbone of every single ethical decision you will ever make in your career. Rule 1, honesty, integrity, and complying with your obligations. Rule 2, maintaining your professional competence. Rule 3, providing good quality and diligent service. Rule 4, treating others with respect and encouraging diversity. And finally, Rule 5, acting in the public interest, taking responsibility, and acting to prevent harm. You've got to memorize these guys because you will need to map literally every interview scenario back to them.
A huge part of Rule 1 involves managing conflicts of interest. If an assessor asks, what's the difference between the types of conflicts, you need to know this clearly. A party conflict is when you act for 2 competing clients, like representing both a developer and a contractor on the exact same project. An own interest conflict, on the other hand, is where your personal or your firm's interests clash with the client's. If either of these pops up, you absolutely cannot proceed unless you obtain clear, informed, written consent from everyone involved and you're certain you can still act impartially. If you can't guarantee that, you have to decline the work.
Moving on to Rule 5. Firms have to respond to complaints openly. An assessor will often ask about a firm's complaints handling procedure, or CHP. Your answer? It must be quick, transparent, and completely free for the client to use. It legally requires a minimum 2-stage process. Stage 1 is an internal review carried out by a senior person within the firm. Now, if the issue is still unresolved, Stage 2 kicks in, which is a referral to an independent, RICS-approved alternative dispute resolution provider, or ADR.
So how do you actually maintain your competence under Rule 2? Well, RICS requires a strict minimum of 20 hours of continuing professional development, or CPD, every single calendar year. And please take note of this detail. At least 10 of those hours must be formal, structured learning. On top of that, an ethics module is mandatory every 3 years. Finally, for our core knowledge, we need to discuss professional indemnity insurance, or PII. What does it do? It protects clients from financial loss due to a surveyor's negligence. But crucially, and assessors love to check you know this, PII is on a claims-made basis. That means the policy in force when a claim is actually made is the one that pays out, not the policy that was active when the work was originally done. Because of this, if you ever cease practice, you must maintain PII runoff cover for a minimum of 6 years, or 12 years if the contracts were executed as a deed.
All right, part 2, my own experience. Let's see how all this theory builds into your actual daily practice. For this bit, I'm going to firmly put my assessor hat on and ask you some realistic interview questions, and then we'll walk through the ideal model answers.
Let's start with a classic level 1 question on knowledge and understanding. So, imagine I lean across the table and say, "Candidate, tell me about a time you followed ethical principles on site." Take a brief second to gather your thoughts here. Now, let's look at how you'd structure a really solid answer.
Using an experience from the Muse project, you would reply as planning manager, "The central issue was an instability risk I identified with a temporary wall. My immediate action was to escalate this to the responsible technical discipline, requesting the area be closed and the temporary work strengthened. Shortly after, there actually was a partial failure, but because access was restricted, no injuries occurred. The rule this demonstrates is Rule 5, acting to prevent harm and maintaining public confidence by questioning a practice I suspected was unsafe, rather than just staying silent.
Excellent structure. Now let's dial it up to your Level 2 question on application. Candidate, describe a situation where you had to actively apply an ethical principle rather than just know about it in theory. Think about confidentiality for a moment. Let's look at the model answer.
When I was leaving my previous firm, an issue arose when an interviewing company asked me to share sample reports from my past role. My action was to firmly decline, as doing so would directly breach my previous employer's non-disclosure agreement. Instead, I offered to demonstrate my capability through a practical task right there in the interview. The rule applied here is Rule 1, honesty and integrity, specifically the strict requirement to protect confidential client and employer information.
Now, welcome to the hot seat. Level 3 is all about reasoned advice. The assessor asks, "Candidate, give me an example where you had to give clear, reasoned ethical advice in a genuinely difficult or contentious situation." Always prepare your issue, action, and rule framework in your head before speaking. This is where the DAR engineering example perfectly models Level 3. You reply, "As Project Controls Lead acting for the Ministry of Health EPMO, the issue is facing intense pressure to change a bidder's technical score after the results were already issued. My action was confirming I would only review the score against documented criteria. I rechecked the submission and the evidence trail. The review confirmed the original scores were totally correct, so I kept the results unchanged and then issued internal guidance to prevent this happening again." The rule this engages is Rule 1. Providing advice honestly and objectively based solely on reliable evidence without ever allowing improper influence.
Okay, brilliant. Now for Part 3, scenario application. What's really useful about this section is how we group these complex Level 3 dilemmas by specific themes. So whatever the assessor throws at you, you know exactly how to handle it.
But before you answer any hypothetical scenario, you have to ground yourself in the RICS ethics decision tree. This is your ultimate workflow tool when you're put on the spot. Step 1, get the facts. Step 2, ask yourself, is this legal? Step 3, is it in line with the RICS rules of conduct? And Step 4, have you consulted appropriate people, and will you record your decision? I highly recommend using this step-by-step logic out loud in your interview to show the assessors exactly how your mind works.
Let's look at Theme 1, Gifts, Hospitality, and Bribery. The assessor asks, a contractor offers you a lavish gift right before you're about to make a tender award. What do you do? Your model answer should be crisp. The action is to politely refuse the gift and immediately report the incident to my line manager. The rule engaged here is Rule 1, avoiding improper influence. This also ensures strict compliance with the Bribery Act 2010, which criminalizes giving or receiving any inducements to gain a commercial advantage.
Theme 2 focuses on money laundering. Here's the question. A client on a large multi-million-pound project asks to make their interim payment in physical cash. What do you do? Your answer needs to show you recognize the danger. This is a massive red flag. My action is to refuse the arrangement immediately, inform my firm's money laundering reporting officer, and expect a suspicious activity report to be submitted to the National Crime Agency. Under Rule 1, members must not facilitate financial crime, and under anti-money laundering regulations, tipping off the client about the report is actually a criminal offense.
Theme 3, Conflict of Interest and Confidentiality. The assessor says, a good friend asks for some free, informal surveying advice on their home extension over a pint. Do your professional obligations change? Your answer is a firm no. My action is to decline giving advice if I lack the appropriate professional indemnity insurance outside of my firm's cover, and instead I'd refer them to the RICS Find a Surveyor service. The rule here is Rule 2, competence. Whether I'm paid or not, if I put my name to professional advice, all RICS rules and PII requirements fully apply.
Theme 4 is whistleblowing. The question is, you suspect abusive labor practices or modern slavery on a site you are inspecting. What is your ethical obligation? Your answer is, my action is to report these suspected practices to proper, recognized authorities in good faith. This explicitly links to Rule 4, treating others with respect and checking our supply chains, and also Rule 5, acting to prevent harm and having the courage to question practices that simply are not right.
So, the absolutely crucial point I want you to take away from all these scenarios is this: vagueness is your biggest enemy in the APC. Always structure your answers using this logical flow. State the issue clearly, describe your specific action, and explicitly name the exact RICS rule of conduct that justifies it.
Doing this consistently demonstrates true, unflappable competence to your assessors. Well, we've covered the core knowledge, we've decoded the experience levels, and we've tackled some of the trickiest scenarios they can throw at you. I'm going to end our session by asking you to think about this. When the pressure is really on in that hot seat and an assessor is actively pushing back on your answer, are you fully prepared to let the documented evidence, the decision tree, and the rules of conduct guide your final decision? Because if you can master those tools, you've mastered the ethics competency. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now, get out there and keep practicing that framework.